How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reaction. So today I'll be checking a little bit of an old recommendation that was sent my way that I had forgotten about, but I was reminded to do that once more because a second recommendation by another content creator who has a voice that is way smoother than my own was sent my way once more, and this has all to do with video game pricing. Are we paying too much for video games? I think yes, as the general consensus is that anything beyond the $69.99 is seen as like a scam, quite literally, like $100 games. No, like I know that there are factors like inflation that come into play there, that a lot of people in the industry will bring forth and say that video games are actually cheaper than ever. But what they often don't take into account is that pricing affect people depending on the disposable income. People just don't have the money to pay for that. There are some who definitely do. That's why they are doing it after all. But overall speaking, with the massive growth of the video game industry and the far-reaching ways that it is now encompassing people from who never had access to games in the past through like free-to-play games, which then have microtransactions. I played the first Descendant as it dropped out this weekend, and my god, that thing is something. People generally want to spend more money on entertainment, and video game is one of those, but putting it at the AAA pricing that is beyond the $69.99 is a wrong move. But this is where we have two analyses, I suppose, at least one from Video Game Donkey that is a slight bit old, it's like 2 years old, and another one from Thor and his sexy voice. Goddamn, he has such an amazing voice. I wish that I could have that. Anyways, let's jump into this one here, Video Game Pricing by the Video Game Donkey.
Video games are an expensive hobby, but at the same time, games are cheaper and more accessible today than ever before. When the Atari 2600 launched in 1977, it cost $200, which doesn't sound too horrible until you adjust for inflation and realize that was like it costing $900. Imagine paying $900 to play this.
Peak gaming.
$60. This is what you expect to pay for a brand new AAA video game. But where did this price come from? Well, in those initial Atari days, games were going for $20 to $30, so pretty good deal. Wait a minute. What the fuck?
To be fair, they are not suffering from a thing that we don't have to deal with today, but kind of still should. The whole thing about physical copies, cartridges that had to be sent, assuring that you had those physical copies secured, right? The money for that, for the production of those things. Yeah, it was a different time back then. Nowadays, we have to deal with French developers telling us that we have to feel comfortable with not owning our games. Trying to do the accent of the Ubisoft dev there, or CEO actually, who said those very same words. Insane.
$120 for Plaque Attack? Oh no! $120 to play Oink. Oink, ladies and gentlemen. $120 to play tax avoiders. Why did you have to avoid paying your taxes? Because video games cost $120. God damn. Jump to NES times. Games are now $60, which was like $150. Jesus Christ. However, that price point would remain at $60 going into future console generations. So while the value of the dollar dropped, video games were subtly becoming cheaper with each passing year. Except when they try to sell Turok for $80 for Turok. What?
Yo. Okay, Australia. I know that you have some things with censorships, banning games like Crusader Kings 3, I can't remember why that was. Disco Elysium, the final cut, was very weird just because there was a button that had to deal with drugs, missing out on the best adventure of Erasmus Bordeaux. God damn it, Australia, man, you're making people miss out on a hell of a lot of things. And of course, GTA San Andreas, which is a little bit understandable with the whole hot coffee situation, but $130 for Turok. What the hell?
There better be over 80 dinosaurs in this game.
$60 is still a lot of money today, but for a top-of-the-line video game that you are going to play and enjoy for the rest of your life, a work of art that developers poured years of their lives into, $60 for that? That's just a good deal. The joke is, how many $60 games meet that criteria? These dumbass games out here, you should be paying me $60 to play this bullshit. The price of a game has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the game. Madden costs as much as Mario Odyssey. Assassin's Creed is $60, and Red Dead 2 is $60. Cyberpunk is an unfinished game, doesn't matter, $60. Doom Eternal is one of the best shooters of all time. Also $60. It's like if you walked into a car dealership and you could buy a Rolls Royce for the same price as a used PT Cruiser.
And as we know, the PT Cruiser is objectively the better option.
Where it gets even more absurd is when you take into account indie games, Celeste, Cuphead, Sonic Mania, Inside, Gungeon. These are some of the best games you can play, and they cost $20. Meanwhile, Metal Gear Survive is $30, Sonic Forces was $40. But
Metal Gear Survive at $30. And no offense to anything that is Metal Gear. Well, it is coming from Konami, who quite literally insulted the franchise and turned it into a pachinko machine, so not too surprising, but god, that game sucked. I should play that again, just to see if I can survive playing through it. I never finished it.
Balan Wonderworld was $60. What the fuck are these prices? They're just picking an arbitrary number out of Balan's golden hat. Marketing will forever manipulate gamers into wanting to buy the brand new cutting-edge game, even when there's nothing new about the game because it's all built on recycled technology from years ago.
This is Far Cry 6. This game is also an offense to the series that it was based on. Mind you, this was released in 2021, okay? And Far Cry 5 was released in 2018 and was a superior product in every way. They had 3 whole years to make a better game because New Dawn does not count. That's not a game. But they somehow managed to devolve. How do you do that? This game violates every rules of progression. And I know that this is coming from a Ubisoft game, so that might not mean too much, but it was very bad.
My question is, why is everyone in such a rush to play a new shitty game that isn't even finished yet, that cost a lot of money, when you motherfuckers haven't even played any of the classics that have been out for years?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to play Mass Effect Andromeda when you haven't even played Mass Effect 2? Why are you buying Metal Gear Survive when you haven't even played Metal Gear Solid? Why are you buying any game when you haven't even played Mario Galaxy yet? You big bitch. I feel like I just have to start showing up at GameStops at this point. When I see somebody pick up a dumbass game, I just knock it out of their hand like, no, no, go pick a better game.
Copy that.
God of War is $17, Uncharted is $16, Doom is $25, Phantom Pain is $18, Devil May Cry is $23, so don't let me catch you out here spending $70 on Lawn Mowing Simulator like...
Look, there are some dads out there, or just some lawn mowing enthusiasts, who really they spend a lot of money building those virginity protectors to make sure that they should not go outside and touch grass, as they could do that virtually. So don't judge them for spending that money. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic here. But as I am recording this right now, this is the Steam sales that we have. Palworld has an update of 18 gigs. What the hell? Anyways, stores. We have here the Steam Summer Sales. Go ahead, spend some money, buy some good games. Some of these titles are barely a year old and are already almost 50% off. Like, get them games, guys. This is the point where I mentioned that I have never played Nier Automata. Yeah, I haven't. It's I only know about this thing vicariously through memes as well as video essays.
Like I know you will. I will come down on you for doing some bullshit like this. Even good games drop in value fast. Ubisoft junk even faster. More than ever, video games are fighting over your money, and as the industry grows, so do your options as a consumer. Now, when I said games drop in value fast 2 seconds ago, I was talking about every game that isn't made by Nintendo.
True.
Nintendo games are expensive. Skyward Sword is a 10-year-old Wii game, $60. Mario Kart came out in 2014, doesn't matter, $60. Why are they so expensive? Because it says Nintendo. Nintendo is the name brand in video games. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, which could be considered the pinnacle of their genre. Not to mention 3D platformers, which you might as well just call the 3D Mario game genre at this point. Not only is Nintendo the best game developer today, but they have been for 4 decades.
And the thing about them is that they have this thing where they don't want to be involved in any controversy. You know how overly protective Nintendo is to their IPs, right? With issuing copyright strikes to content creators and just people playing whatever and showcasing gameplay sometimes. It's like, imagine being in the company whose media franchise earns the highest revenue in the world. Like, they are the Disney of Japan, and that is a status that they refuse that anybody takes away from them and infringes upon in any way whatsoever. I think the way that they are handling it is criminal, but I kind of understand what they want to do with it. But the way that they are handling the pricing of these things is mad. Like, they refuse to be part of anything mainstream, like how most of the game remains on their own stores. They make use of like gimmicky devices like the Switch or the Wii U and so on and so forth, which is not a bad thing, but it's all done to ensure that the values of the game never falters. When you have ensured that the value of your game remains as high, you don't have to rely on the same tactics that the AAA companies of the West, for example, will do, of once they reach a certain sales number that gives them their money back, they can suddenly start discounting things and no longer charging stuff at full price. Which makes the situation even more infuriating when they refuse you to do whatever you want to do with the game that you've already paid for.
And this is how they get away with selling Kirby for $60. Nintendo games are not created equally, but they are sold as equals. Mario Odyssey is $38 and Splatoon 2 is $55. And I just gotta sit here and say, okay, while I would gladly pay $100 for a game as good as Pikmin 3, I feel disgusted and insulted when you ask $60 for Pokemon Sword. Get the fuck out of here. I'll give you $1 for this game.
And that's the thing, right? As Pokemon fans will always just ask for the bare minimum for Game Freaks to do. Like, they are sitting on an insane gold mine, but all of that relies simply on trademarks and patents and things that ensure that the intellectual property isn't infringed upon. So they can loan that to other people to make things like the Mario movie, and thus they get a hell of a lot of money back from it. They are always playing a defensive game, and that has paid off. As I've stated before, they are the Disney of Japan, and they've reached that status at a fraction of the time.
Have you ever heard the expression, the best things in life are free? League of Legends, Valorant, Fortnite.
Oh no.
All of the best video games are free. Wait, the $60 annual franchise is now a dinosaur. Call of Duty and Battlefield are higher quality games, but they've monetized in such an exploitive way that people are flocking to free-to-play titles instead. Why pay $60 for a game with a 1-year lifespan when they're still updating Fortnite with free content years later? Then you got Overwatch over here, $40 for a game that is 10 times more polished and replayable than any Call of Duty or Battlefield, and they added how many characters and maps to that game over the years. And now Halo Infinite is going free to play?
Yeah, the original Overwatch 2 not doing so well.
$60 for this bullshit? This is over.
Happy New Year, Xbox.
Now, back in my day, this must have been around 1910, there was a rental store called Blockbuster. Blockbuster had a deal called Game Pass, where you could pay a monthly fee to keep out 1 or 2 games, and you could come in whenever you wanted and swap them out for another game. Back then, this was the best way to game the system. I remember Blockbuster always had that movie, Pirates, and it didn't have Johnny Depp in it. I think it was...
You know what we had? We had a library. We could just go to the library and borrow games from there. We didn't have to pay. That's how I knew of like the Heroes of Might and Magic series. Didn't pay for those games. I just got to play them for free. And you had 30 days to return the CD.
This was a different version of the movie. Today, that deal lives on as the Xbox Game Pass. For $15 a month, you can get access to a pretty decent library of games. I think it's something like 300 games, and there is some really good stuff in here. The only thing wrong with the Xbox Game Pass is that the second I recommend this to people, you already know snake-ass Microsoft is going to triple the price on this thing.
More.
Sadly, many of the best video games out there are not available on any modern devices. Say you want to play a Sega Saturn game. Well, first you're going to need the console. What the fuck? And then the game. Let's look for Panzer Dragoon Saga. $1,700.
Oh my god!
Now remember when I said that games drop in value? We are at a point where remastered versions of games are now outdated. Metal Gear Solid 4 is still only playable on the PS3. Ridge Racer? That doesn't exist. What are you talking about? Do you mean Renzo Racer?
Good lord.
GoldenEye? What the fuck is Golden? Are you talking about Golden Tee? That's not a real game. I think you're thinking of the Watch Dogs 2 Golden City bundle. Tekken 3? Huh? Are you talking about the Tekken 7 Season Pass 3? Beautiful Joe. What?
Oh my god.
You mean Joe's Diner? Emulation?
I actually have Beautiful Joe. I got it with... Okay, fair enough. This is a cracked version for an emulator for Bayonetta that I got. But yeah, I'm so happy that I now got that game.
Is pretty much the only practical way to get at classic games. If it's on arcade, NES, SNES, Genesis, PS1, Game Boy, DS, PS2, N64, or GameCube, you can probably emulate it. Now this may or may not technically be legal, but this is just a straight up fucking crime. And what's nice about emulating games is that they're all free. Remember, back in the 70s, this was $150. Today, it's a 7 kilobyte file.
Yep. Nice.
Are cheeseburgers really this bad for your teeth?
Well, you technically cannot get cheaper than zero, so yeah, well done. No, but seriously, emulation all the way. I know that sounded a little bit like I was, ass-kissing Nintendo there for just explaining why they are doing the things that they do, but yeah, one thing that I will never forgive them is quite literally doing such things to emulators. Although the emulators themselves kind of had it coming. Yeah, that being said, we have part 2 here with Thor. Our game's overpriced. We can do a twofer here. Let's go.
What do you think of $100 plus games? So there's a couple of things that are really interesting about this. Back in the day, a Super Nintendo game was $69.95. That's how much Secret of Mana cost when it first came out. Let's go pull this up. Inflation calculator. And what year did Secret of Mana launch? August 6, 1993. And we're going to go from August 1993, and we'll go to April of 2024. And we're going to say $69.95. If you were to buy that Super Nintendo game today, in today's currency, it'd be $151.47. That would be the cost. Dramatically higher, right? But the reason they were so expensive back then is because of physical distribution. That's the reason. We don't have that anymore. You don't have to make a cartridge. You don't have to put it on a store shelf. You don't have to physically ship it. You don't have to do any of that. We have digital distribution. It costs nothing. I have sold tens of thousands of copies of Heartbound, and it has cost us nothing. So when we're looking at this versus that, it doesn't make sense. We can't even make a comparison there. Steam still takes 30%? No, they don't. When I make a Steam key,
only
and
for
that
Steam,
key
right?
is for a $10 game, and then I sell that on Humble Bundle. What is the percentage that Steam takes from me? 0%. Steam only takes 30% of the sales you have on the Steam platform. Only on the Steam platform.
Yeah.
Further than that, if you have trading cards for your game, which you always do, you make those yourself.
That's one of the beautiful things. I remember Seth mentioned a thing in his last review, which of course can be a little bit problematic when certain patches can be removed from a Steam update, whereas something like GOG will maintain things in all of the forms. You can of course downgrade games. It's possible to do it on Steam too, but the process is just a slight bit irritating to do. But yeah, if you want to support a creator, an indie creator or game developer, you can always just buy things on Humble Bundle.
Very easy. Whenever one of those sells between one player and another, there's a community market fee. Steam gives the developer the community market fee. That ain't 30%. That's a lot less than 30%.
Okay.
Depending on how you strategize your sales, it's dramatically less than 30%. And Steam does not charge you for the distribution of your patches or the game itself outside of that 30% cut. Isn't that literally pennies, though? No, no. Very funny. So the way that I look at this right now is this doesn't make sense. We live in a time of digital distribution, and the way that I see sales of games is like this. If it's $1, people see it as shovelware. If it's $3, they see it as an arcade game. $5 is a premium arcade game. $10 is an indie game. $20 is a premium indie game. Anything anywhere from 10 to 20 is a premium indie game. $40.
Except when you end up with something like Rise of Kong and many other games that were released by Iguanabee. Those were shovelware, marketed at what? $40 to $50. Mad.
Is a day game. $60 is AAA. And anything 70 or above is a scam. That's the general way that people feel about games that I've seen so far. Like, this is the limit. Anything above that, and people hate you, whether they feel it's worth it or not. The problem is this. The ones saying this, unfortunately, don't matter. As awful as that is, because there's multitudes of people that are just buying the games anyway.
The reminder that I always tell people, I've said that many times on streams when we talk about video games, while it is important, I think, to always try to take a little bit of an objective route when we're analyzing and reviewing games and talking about the things that are done well by a developer and the things that should be considered when people actually make reviews, those are all fine and dandy, but the average person doesn't give a flying fuck about it. Like any other type of entertainment, you just want to spend some money on something that is going to distract you. You don't care about the quality of it sometimes. It just has to be enough for you to spend some time and feel a little bit of a dopamine rush. That's what a vast majority of people do. They don't care about the artistic value of a game, how great the system have been, sometimes don't even care about the stories. You just have to vibe with it. And that is also fine. The problem for me is that it should not be something that the industry is supporting, because it degrades the quality of games, and also it pushes people who don't have that amount of disposable income, as I mentioned before, to want to spend more. And it should never do that.
An insane number of people that don't take any part in online discourse, don't take any part in talking about $70 game, don't take any part in any of this, and just buy the $100+ copies.
Okay, I should have just shut up.
Find very quickly
Could have said the same.
The double down versions of games, instead of the $70 version, the $110 version, you'll find that these ones sell more than these ones. Almost every time. And if it is a $70 game, it'll likely have MTX in it that will end up making it sell more than this every time. The reason that the business model works this way is because people spend money on it. This is normal business for the games industry, and I reject the shit out of it. Why do you think our game is $10 and it won't have a sequel, and it won't have a prequel, and it won't have chapters, and it won't have DLC, and it won't have microtransactions? That's why it's $10, because I hate this business model.
That's a man with principle. I can applaud that.
Hate it. I think it's shit, and I don't want to perpetuate it, even if it would make me more money, because it's not good for the industry. So I can't convince people to stop buying games like this. I can just stop selling games in that way and succeed in spite of that. So are sequels bad? No, but if you're making episodic content, it's not good for the game a lot of the times. I'll give you an example. Let's say that your base game is $10 and you release a DLC for $5. And then you release a DLC for $5, and you release a DLC for $5. As a player, you bought it for $10, and a new DLC comes out 3 months later. It's only $5, so you buy it, and then another one 3 months later. Well, it's only $5, so you bought it, and then another one 3 months later. It's only $5, so you buy it, right? You just keep doing this. Now, let's say that you tell your friend, hey man, this game is really good. And your friend's like, oh, how much was it? And you're like, oh, it's $10. And your friend goes to look at it, and he goes, that's not $10. Now you get a $25 game. So
Q in Monster Hunter and the myriad of other games where They are super fun to play, but then you watch the $500 or so worth of DLC and you go like, why is this a thing?
New players are de-incentivized from jumping in, but old players feel like they got good value, and they didn't pay that much, except they're both paying the same amount. It's a marketing strategy that preys on your inability to do math, or inability to assign value over time. That's the issue. So, like, not a fan of it.
Warhammer.
Really not a fan of it. If I'm going to release new content for Heartbound, I'm just going to patch it into the game, like I always have. No reason not to. What are your thoughts on expansions then for games? I only like expansions for live service games a lot of the times. Like, I really only like expansions for live service games. I don't like expansions a lot of the time outside of that. I think they're kind of gross. Like, if you're doing a single player game, the only time I'd say an expansion makes sense is like if you're adding another campaign to it. Live service game does make sense for expansions because that ends up being kind of a good deal. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be a substantial kind of change, in my opinion. In the talk earlier, well, that was last week, about the difficulty levels of not Dragon's Dogma, Jesus Christ, Elden Ring. I mentioned how the DLC could quite literally be considered as an Elden Ring 2, in the same light that the Blood and Wine DLC from The Witcher was almost a new game of its own, with the size of it and the story that was involved there. It was a massive thing. Spent like 50 hours completing that. So in my opinion, it has to be substantially bigger to warrant being called a DLC in a single player game, or an expansion at that.
Be clear, it's not DLC. It's an expansion.
It's pretty rare that single player games get expansions that make sense. It's pretty rare. What about the infamous Oblivion Horse Armored DLC? I think it's ass, like, obviously. Not a fan of
never
that.
happened.
Risk of Rain? Risk of Rain wasn't an expansion. That was a totally new game. We had Risk of Rain to Risk of Rain 2. It's a completely different video game. That's fine. What about Vampire Survivors?
No.
I actually don't like Vampire Survivors.
Risk of Rain 2 has a DLC, right? Am I bugging here? Let me double check. Risk of Rain. We have DLC, right? Yeah, Risk of Rain, the Void one. I have it. So yeah, it has a DLC, but it's good. I can say that much.
I didn't like the fact that they went from a $3 game and then sold millions of copies and then made it $5. Like, why? Why did they do that? There's no reason for that shit. Makes no sense. Bro gets mad from $2 game to $5 game? Yeah. Do you know why? Because there's no reason for that. If you have a $3 game and it sells millions of copies, and then you change that price to $5, you have a small team that has more money than they'll ever need, and you've changed the price to $5 after it becomes popular. If I took my game that was $10 and I made it $12 after it became popular, would you feel good about that? You'd hate it, just like I do. It's like, because there's no reason for it. The only time that we ever have to change prices is when there's dramatic shifts in the valuation of individual currencies. Currency exchange rates is the only time we have to raise prices, because sometimes currency exchange rates go crazy, which is exactly what happened with Argentina, right? Like, that sucks. There's nothing we can do about it at that point. Where, like, suddenly, like, a currency just inflates to and is not worth anything anymore. Like, we have to take action. There's nothing we can do about it. That's the only time that I think that's appropriate. That's the only time, and it's a global finance issue. Yeah, global finances go wacky. Bingo. Price your game in line with the gold standard? No, that's not really how that works. The way that you have to price your game, no matter what, man, is based on people's expendable income. You're making an entertainment piece. That's what that is. It's an entertainment piece. People don't need to buy your game. They don't have to. So you have to price it based on people's expendable income inside of that area. Disposable income is what you're targeting. What about board member bonuses? Gross. Yeah, it's gross. No, you don't have to buy it. I price ours based on a Big Mac. It's about a Big Mac and a half. Yeah. You want people to buy... What is this? You want people to buy your product? Make it affordable. Bingo. Yes. Make it affordable for each region, too. Always make it affordable for each region.
Regional
you have to think
base
about what
sense.
The economics are of each region that you're selling the game in. And you have to think about specifically how much disposable income people in that region have. Yeah, regional pricing. Always regional pricing. Always.
I hope that it isn't the same amount of logic, though, that apply to Turok being $130, because to my understanding, Australia isn't that.
And then you price it appropriately based on that. It's very easy. Just takes a little bit of effort, right? Are you in favor of microtransactions in the game if the game is free? I'm in favor of microtransactions if they are cosmetic in nature and nothing else. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for anything else. Cosmetics only. How do you make the art for your game? Shay makes all the art and animation for Harbon. I do the technical art, which is particle effects, shadows, lighting, stuff like that. Sony priced Helldivers to 0 in some region. No, they didn't price Helldivers
No,
to
they
0
blocked
in
it.
some regions. They made it unpurchasable in some regions. Those are two very different things. Yeah. No, 0 would be free. Lol, same thing. No, 0 would be free. They turned it. What they did was they took a selling video game and instead applied a 5-finger discount to everybody who wanted to go the extra mile. It's probably the greatest advertisement to piracy I've ever seen in my life. Insane to watch.
Yeah, with the one exception that people could then not really pirate the game. Yeah. Although I have heard things about rumors on how people have been able to mod the Helldivers 2. Is that even legal? Are they running it on like private servers or something? I mean, a little bit interested in seeing that because like those could make for like fun Star Wars matches or Halo for that matter. Jesus, I don't know where did I grunt there. I guess I just really want to have a Helldiver styled Halo game. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. This had to do all with video game pricing, and I hope that it was a tiny bit informational. At least it was for me. And yeah, hope you liked it. If of course you want to subscribe to any of the channels that I've reacted to here, please do make sure to do that. Links to the channels, respective channels, will be in the description below. That being said, wish you all to have a wonderful day. Steam sales are on if you have some disposable income to get hold of some good games. The under $5 are pretty good this summer actually. Highly recommend that you do so. Have a great day. See you guys in the next one. Bye.